Welcome to Creepytalks, where hidden fears come alive through chilling horror tales. Dare to listen as every story pulls you deeper into the darkness. Story 1. The Girl Who Answered the Midnight Call. If your phone rings exactly at 12 a.m. on New Year, don't answer it. Someone who died that year might be trying to finish their last call. Elena Hartley had always loved winter in Vancouver. The quiet snowfall, the glowing street lights, the distant echo of fireworks tested early. All of it usually made her feel warm inside. But this year, it only made the silence louder. It was her first New Year's Eve alone. Her parents lived back in Australia, her co-workers had gone skiing, and her best friend Alyssa Rowan would never celebrate anything again. Alyssa had died in a highway crash in October, but Elena couldn't forget one detail: the empty passenger seat that was supposed to be hers. At 11:43 p.m., Elena's apartment lights flickered. Once, twice. The heater rattled like old bones. She shrugged. Great. Power issues again. Wrapped in a gray blanket, Elena stared at her phone. Her wallpaper was still a photo of her and Alyssa on the beach last summer. Smiling, sunburned, carefree. They had a tradition. Call each other exactly at midnight. No excuses, no delays. But tonight, Alyssa's number would stay silent. At 11:57 p.m., Elena's reflection stared back at her from the glass door. Pale, tired, lonely. Outside, snow fell softly over the city. Then, her phone buzzed. Once, twice. Then it began to ring. Elena didn't look at the screen at first. She assumed it was her mom or some drunk coworker. But when she finally glanced down, her lungs froze. Incoming call. Alyssa. Her heartbeat slammed against her chest. No, this is impossible, Elena whispered. The caller ID photo, Alyssa laughing with windblown hair, glowed brightly in the dark room. Her hands trembled. Her mouth went dry. The call kept ringing. 11:59:45 p.m. 11:59:52 p.m. 11:59:58 p.m. Then 12 a.m. Fireworks exploded across Vancouver, but Elena heard nothing. The ringing felt louder, sharper, like it was coming from inside her head. She lifted her phone slowly. Her thumb slid across the screen. She answered. Hello? She whispered. Nothing. Just soft static. Then breathing. Slow, wet, painful. Then a voice. Broken, familiar, angry. You took my seat. Elena's world stopped. Alyssa? Her voice cracked. The breath on the line grew harsher. Sad, grieving, rage hidden inside. You took my seat that night. Elena felt tears rise. No, Alyssa, I didn't. I never meant. The call disconnected. Instantly, her apartment lights dimmed to a faint glow. The temperature dropped so fast her breath fogged. Her hands turned numb. Alyssa, what do you mean? Elena whispered. But she already knew. That October night, Alyssa begged her. Come with me. I want a weekend road trip. Please. Alyssa left a seat open, waiting for Elena. But Elena said, I'm tired. Maybe next weekend. There was no next weekend. At 12:01 a.m., the apartment groaned. The windows rattled. The heater shut off completely. The air grew colder. Elena's ears rang. She looked at the glass door again. A second reflection had appeared. A woman standing behind her, wet hair hanging over her face, clothes shredded, skin bruised purple, neck twisted unnaturally. Alyssa. Elena gasped and spun around. But the room was empty, except for the feeling, the undeniable presence of something behind her, cold breath brushing her neck. Her phone buzzed again. One new voicemail from Alyssa. Her shaking thumb tapped play. The voice on the voicemail didn't sound human anymore. You celebrated the new year, while I never reached mine. Static crackled, then a horrific crash, metal twisting, glass shattering, a scream cut short. Then, "I came back for you." Elena dropped the phone. She staggered backward. Her bedroom door slammed shut with a violent bang. "No, no, no!" she screamed. Then she heard footsteps, slow, heavy, dragging, moving down the hallway toward her. Elena turned. Alyssa stood there, fully visible, broken, dead, eyes blackened, wide open, mouth twisted but trembling like she wanted to speak through tears. She stepped forward slowly, her bones cracked with every movement. "Elena," she whispered. Elena sobbed. "I'm sorry, please." Alyssa's voice came out like a distorted echo. "I didn't want to die alone." The ceiling light exploded. The apartment plunged into darkness. Elena screamed, but the scream cut off suddenly, as if someone grabbed her throat and pulled her into the dark. When power returned at 12:04 a.m., the apartment was empty. The only thing left behind was a cracked phone on the floor. Last call, 12:00 a.m., 0031. Every tenant who moved into that apartment afterward reported the same thing. At exactly 12:00 a.m. on New Year's Eve, a phone rings from the empty living room, and no one can find where the sound comes from. Story 2. The clock that struck 13 on New Year's night. On New Year's Eve, if a clock strikes 13, don't look at it, because the one striking it isn't human. Adrian Clark loved antique things, broken radios, dusty books, old maps, forgotten clocks. That's why he opened Clark's Curiosities, a tiny antique shop hidden in a narrow street of Edinburgh's Old Town. But there was one item he never bought: old clocks. His grandmother once told him, "Clocks hold time, and sometimes they hold things pretending to be time." He never understood what that meant until the night he found her clock. It was December 31st, 2025, 8:47 p.m. Snow fell over the ancient stone streets. Tourists roamed the Christmas market, sipping hot chocolate, taking photos of the cathedral lights. Adrian was closing his shop when someone knocked on the glass door. A woman stood outside. Gray coat, pale face, trembling hands. Her eyes looked exhausted, hollow. Are you still open?" she asked. Adrian unlocked the door. "Yes, come in. How can I help?" She clutched a wooden box to her chest. "I need to sell this. I need it gone before midnight." Her voice cracked with fear. "What is it?" Adrian asked gently. She opened the box. Inside was an old brass clock, beautifully carved, shaped like a tiny cathedral tower. But its hands were stuck at 12:59. The second hand twitched, but didn't move forward. The woman whispered, "It strikes 13 on New Year's." Adrian blinked. "That's impossible. Clocks don't strike 13. Her eyes filled with dread. "This one does." She pushed the box toward him. "Please, take it. I can't keep it." Before he could protest, she fled into the snowy street and disappeared into the crowd. Adrian stared at the clock. It was cold. Too cold. Metal shouldn't feel like that indoors. He placed it on the counter. The shop lights dimmed. For a second, he thought he saw something reflected on the brass surface. A shadow standing behind him. He quickly turned. No one there. He exhaled sharply. "Get a grip, Adrian." At 9:30 p.m., he locked the shop and carried the clock upstairs to his small apartment above. He set it on his desk. The hand still stuck at 12:59. Second hand twitching like it desperately wanted to move. The whole apartment felt heavier with the clock in it, like something had entered with him. He heated soup, turned on his radio, tried to relax. But at 11:44 p.m., something happened. The second hand suddenly stopped twitching. The entire clock went silent. And then, tick, Tick, tick. Slow, loud, unnatural ticks filled the apartment. Adrian frowned. It's not even wound. But the clock's hands began moving on their own. 11:45 p.m., 11:50 p.m., 11:57 p.m. Adrian backed away from the desk. The air turned icy. His breath fogged. The lamp flickered. He heard a soft whisper from behind the clock. He leaned in slowly. A voice, thin, distant, hollow, whispered, "Let me out." Adrian stumbled backward. "Nope, no, this is not happening." He grabbed a blanket, heading toward the door to leave. Bang! The door slammed shut on its own. The clock ticked louder. Tick, 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 tick. The hands spun violently. A full minute passing in 3 seconds. 11:59 p.m. Everything went dead silent. Adrian's heart pounded. No! No! Don't! The clock began ringing. Dong. He froze. 1 strike. Okay, maybe it's broken. Dong. 2. His skin crawled. Dong. 3. The lamp exploded. Dong. 4. Adrian backed into the corner, trembling. Dong. 5. Dong. 6. Dong. 7. The temperature plummeted. Adrian's breath shook out like smoke. Dong. 8. Dong. 9. Dong. 10. Dong. 11. Dong. 12. Midnight. New Year. He waited. He prayed. Maybe it would stop. But then, the clock gave a long, unnatural creak. And then, DONG 13. Everything in the apartment shuddered. The walls vibrated. The air rippled. Like reality itself cracked. A voice echoed from inside the clock. "I'm out!" The brass door of the tiny clock tower, SLOWLY, opened. A dark hand, long, thin, shadow-like, slid out from inside. Adrian screamed. The shadow pulled itself out, stretching, unfolding, forming, until a tall, faceless figure stood in his room, its head tilted, arms dangling past its knees. It whispered in a childlike voice, "Thank you for letting me in." Adrian ran to the door, but it snapped shut. The shadow moved, fast. It wrapped around Adrian like smoke. He choked, gasped, clawed at the air. But his hands passed right through the creature. Its whispered breath slid into his ear. "Now you keep time for me." The room went black. When sunlight returned on January 1st, Adrian Clark was gone. Only the clock remained on the desk, its hands stuck at 1:30. No one ever saw him again. But every New Year in Edinburgh, people report the same sound echoing through empty alleys. A clock striking 13 times, even though no clock in the city should be able to. Story 3. The Snowfall That Whispered My Name. New Year's Eve is loud, but that night the snow wasn't silent. It whispered Elena's name, slow, cold, and hungry. And the worst part? The voice didn't come from outside. It came from inside the house. Elena Marlowe had always loved the cold. That's why she moved from Barcelona to Reykjavik, searching for peace, silence, and the kind of winters that make the world look pure. Or so she thought. But purity doesn't last long in Icelandic winters, especially when the snow starts remembering your name. December 31st, 11:28 p.m. The Isolated Cabin. Elena rented a beautiful cabin on the outskirts of Reykjavik. Wooden walls, glass windows, a perfect view of the northern lights, like floating ghosts dancing in the sky. She lit the fireplace, wrapped herself in a blanket, and opened her journal. New year, new life, a peaceful start, she wrote. But peace doesn't visit that cabin, not anymore, because that cabin had a legend attached to it. One locals refused to tell outsiders. A legend Elena had never heard. The first whisper. She was sipping hot chocolate, enjoying the snowfall outside when she froze. Something whispered her name. Not loudly, not aggressively, but very, very close. Elena! Her cup slipped from her hand. She turned. The cabin was empty. The wind howled outside, brushing against the windows, but she had heard it clearly. That wasn't wind. It wasn't imagination. It was a voice that knew her name. She locked all the doors, closed all windows, pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders, but the whisper came again. Elena! Come outside. Her heartbeat hammered painfully. She gathered the courage to peep outside the window, and her blood went cold. A shadow in the snow. There was a figure standing at the tree line, tall, unnaturally still, covered entirely in frost. It had no face, only a hollow indentation where the eyes should be. Yet she could feel it staring at her. The whisper returned, louder. Come, cold, enough, for you. Elena stumbled back, knocking over a lamp. The shadow didn't move. It didn't walk toward her. It simply shifted, appearing suddenly 3 trees closer, then closer and closer, teleporting through the snowfall like a glitch. Elena screamed, shut the curtains, and backed against the wall. She grabbed her phone and dialed the local emergency number. No network, no signal, just static. The legend she never heard midnight was approaching. The entire city far away was preparing fireworks. Elena sat trembling when a sudden knock hit the door. 3 slow knocks. She didn't breathe. Then, another knock, louder this time. She whispered to herself, don't open it, don't answer it. Her mind kept repeating the same line like a warning. And then, she heard footsteps inside the cabin. Not outside, inside. Snowflakes drifted across the wooden floor, leaving a cold white trail behind them. And a tall, frost-coated figure stepped out from behind the coat rack. Elena froze in pure terror. Its body crackled like ice breaking. Its head twisted unnaturally, like something imitating human movement without understanding it. Then, with a voice that sounded like snow crunching under boots, it spoke. Elena, I found you. Her knees almost gave way. That's when she finally understood. This thing didn't need doors, didn't need windows. It came with the snow. Midnight. Fireworks begin. As the fireworks exploded in the sky, illuminating the cabin windows, the creature moved closer. Every step made the temperature drop. Her breath turned to frost. Her eyelashes froze. Her fingers went numb. She grabbed the fireplace poker, her only weapon, and swung at it. The poker went straight through, as if it was made of mist. But the creature didn't attack. Instead, it extended one long, icy hand toward her throat and whispered, come with me, into the snow. Become like us. Become cold. Forever. Elena shrieked and ran toward the back door. The fireworks drowned out her footsteps. The endless snowfield. Elena sprinted into the snowfield behind the cabin. The wind was merciless. The cold burned her lungs. Behind her the creature glided, never walking, never stopping, moving like a shadow across the snow. Fireworks exploded above her. Colorful lights flashed across the sky. For a moment, she could see hundreds of shapes behind her. Hundreds, all tall, all faceless, all whispering. Elena, Elena, Elena. Her legs gave out. She collapsed into the snow, knowing the cold would claim her anyway. The final moment, one of the faceless shadows kneeled in front of her. It touched her forehead with a hand made of ice and whispered one last time, New year, new one of us. Elena screamed. Everything went white. Everything went silent. The snow swallowed her. January 1, 9:45. A.M. hikers passing by the area found Elena's cabin door open. Her belongings were still inside, her coat still hanging, her journal open on the table. Only one sentence was written after midnight. It's whispering my name, and now it knows yours too. They never found her body, but locals say every New Year's Eve, when the first snow falls, a new voice whispers from the tree line, calling a new name. Maybe yours, maybe not, but you'll hear it, and when you do, don't answer. Story 4. The Last Guest of Room 317. Some hotel rooms are booked for people. Room 317 was booked for something else, something that had been waiting centuries for a living soul. And on New Year's Eve, it finally chose Nathan. Nathan Crowell always picked cheap hotels when he traveled, not because he was broke, but because he was a photographer who loved abandoned, strange, forgotten places. So when he reached Edinburgh for a New Year's photography project, he booked a small, aging hotel on the outskirts of the city called the Blackthorn Manor Inn. It looked old, too old, the kind of building that whispers if you stare at it for too long. The warning at the reception, the old manager looked up at him. "You're Crowell? Room 317? Nathan nodded. The manager paused. "Are you sure you want that room?" Nathan laughed. "Is something wrong with it?" The manager didn't answer. He simply slid the key across the counter. "Do not open the window," he whispered. "Whatever you hear, don't look outside. And if someone knocks after midnight, don't answer it." Nathan blinked. "Why? What happens?" The manager didn't respond. Instead, he walked into the back office and shut the door. Inside room 317. Nathan climbed the creaky stairs and unlocked room 317. It was perfectly normal. Old wallpaper, a dusty mirror, a wooden wardrobe, a window facing the empty back courtyard. He inspected the window latch. Old, rusted, nothing unusual. He placed his camera bag on the bed inside. "This manager probably tells ghost stories to attract tourists," he muttered. But that night, he would learn the truth. 11:43 p.m., the first sound. Nathan was editing photos when he heard it. A scratch at the window. Not wind, not branches, scratching, like fingernails dragging across glass. He froze. The manager's warning echoed in his mind. "Do not open the window. Don't look outside." Nathan walked slowly toward it. The scratching stopped. Silence. He exhaled. Probably a tree. But then, someone whispered from the other side of the window. "Nathan, let me in." Nathan stumbled backward. His throat tightened. He whispered to himself, "How do they know my name?" He lived alone. No one in Edinburgh knew him. The whisper came again, this time directly against the glass. "Nathan, please, I'm cold. Open the window." His blood froze, because the voice wasn't distant. It was at his ear level, right outside. The shadow. Despite the warning, Nathan slowly moved toward the window and pulled the curtain an inch, just 1 inch, and that was enough to make him scream. A face stared back at him, pale, gray, skin stretched like wax, eyes hollow like deep pits. The face tilted unnaturally the moment it sensed movement. Nathan fell backward, knocking over the lamp. The room went dark. Only the faint glow of streetlights illuminated the window, where the shadow leaned closer. It whispered again, but this time, it sounded angry. "Nathan, I said let me in." The glass shook, as if something was hitting it gently, testing it. The knocking midnight fireworks exploded across Edinburgh. Boom, boom, boom. Nathan covered his ears, trembling on the floor. Then he heard it. Knock, knock, knock. Not from the door, from inside the wardrobe. He froze. Then knock, knock, knock. Slow, rhythmic, not human. Nathan whispered, "No, no, no, no." The wardrobe door creaked, just slightly, just enough for a sliver of darkness to appear. A hand slid out, not a living hand, gray and elongated, like clay stretched too far. It tapped the floor and started crawling toward him. The figure enters. Nathan scrambled toward the door, grabbed the handle. It wouldn't move. The door was locked, not from the inside, from the outside, as if someone didn't want him leaving. Behind him, the wardrobe door slowly opened all the way. A tall, thin figure stepped out. Its limbs were bent wrong, its neck too long, its joints cracking like breaking twigs. It didn't walk. It folded toward him, each movement sharp and jerky. And the thing whispered, "You looked, so now I can come inside." Nathan kicked the wall, trying to break the door down, but the creature was already beside him. Its cold fingers touched his shoulder. He screamed. The final moment. Nathan used his last ounce of strength to grab his heavy camera tripod and swung it. The creature's head snapped sideways, but it didn't react. Didn't feel pain. Didn't stop. It leaned forward and whispered in a voice made of ice, "I've waited centuries in the dark. You opened the path. Now you belong to room 317. The lights exploded. Glass shattered. Nathan felt something wrap around his throat. Then, darkness. January 7:20 a.m. Housekeeping knocked on room 317. No answer. They opened the door. The room was empty. Camera bag on the bed, laptop open, window still locked, but the wardrobe door wide open. Inside there were deep scratch marks, like something had been dragged inside or dragged out. Nathan Crowell was never found. The manager simply whispered, "Another one fed the room." And that night, room 317 was available for booking again. Story 5, The Girl in the Frozen Mirror. Mirrors reflect the world you see, but on New Year's Eve in Vienna, Lucas discovered a mirror that reflected something else, something dead, something trapped, something that wanted him. And the worst part? It didn't want to stay inside anymore. Lucas Reinhardt never believed in the supernatural. He didn't believe in curses, ghosts, or bad omens. But that changed on December 31st, when he purchased an antique mirror from a street market in Vienna, a mirror locals refused to touch. The seller, an old woman with trembling hands, whispered, "Don't let it face your bed. Don't look into it after midnight. And whatever you do, don't talk to her." Lucas laughed it off. "Who is her?" The woman looked away, eyes dark. "The one who never left the mirror." He thought she was being dramatic, but he still bought the mirror because it looked beautiful. A carved silver frame, frost patterns permanently etched across the glass, almost like frozen hands pressing against it. He had no idea those hands were real. The mirror in his apartment. Lucas placed the mirror in his cozy Vienna apartment. Tall windows, snow falling gently outside, New Year fireworks being prepared across the city. He hung the mirror opposite his bed, exactly where the old woman told him not to. "Superstitions," he muttered. By 11 p.m., Lucas had poured wine, dimmed the lights, and turned on soft music. The mirror glowed faintly in the background. He didn't notice. Not yet. 11:19 p.m. The first sign, Lucas went to wash his face. When he came back, he froze. The mirror had fog on the inside. Not the outside, the inside. Like someone trapped behind it had breathed against the glass. He approached slowly. The fog faded. He shook his head. Maybe the room is cold. But Vienna's winter wasn't mysterious enough to explain what happened next. 11:37 p.m. The girl appears. Lucas lay down on the bed, scrolling through his phone. He glanced at the mirror, and his heart nearly stopped. A girl was standing behind his reflection, Pale skin, black hair covering her face, a white dress soaked as if she had drowned, eyes dark, empty, watching him, right behind him. Lucas whipped around. No one there. He stared at the empty room, then slowly turned back to the mirror. The girl was closer, closer to the glass, closer to him. He whispered shakily, "This isn't real." The girl tilted her head and smiled, a small, broken smile. The whisper. The air turned freezing cold. Lucas saw his own breath in the dim light. Then, the girl in the mirror whispered, but not from the mirror, from behind his ear. "Lucas!" He jumped off the bed, heart pounding so hard he felt dizzy. "How do you know my name?" The girl didn't move her lips in the mirror, but the voice continued, "Let me out. Please. It's cold in here." Lucas shook his head furiously. "No, no, stay away." The girl slowly raised her hand and pressed it against the inside of the glass. The glass cracked. Just a little, like thin ice breaking. Lucas stumbled backward. 11:59 p.m. The breaking point. Fireworks outside began counting down. 10. Lucas grabbed a bed sheet and threw it over the mirror. 9. He stepped back, breathing fast. 8. The sheet began to move. Something underneath it shifted. 7. The mirror began to push outward, like a heartbeat behind the glass. 6. A handprint appeared through the sheet. 5. Another handprint, and another. 4. Lucas cried out, "Stop! Stop! Please stop!" 3. The sheet fell off. The girl in the mirror was inches from the surface now. 2. Her pale hands pushed through the cracks. 1. The mirror shattered. Lucas screamed. Midnight. New Year's Eve. Silence. Shards of silver glass lay across the floor like frozen snow. The mirror frame was empty, but Lucas sensed someone behind him. He turned, slowly, terrified. The girl was standing in the room, fully out, face visible, eyes red, veins black like ink. She whispered, "Thank you for letting me out." Lucas backed away until his spine hit the wall. What do you want?" Her head tilted. Her wet hair dripped onto the hardwood floor, and she whispered the words that broke him. "I want your place, so you take mine." Before he could run, she touched his face, cold as ice, burning like fire. Lucas gasped. His reflection suddenly appeared in the empty frame. He wasn't in the room anymore. He was inside the mirror, trapped, frozen, unable to scream, watching helplessly, as the girl, now wearing his face, stood in his apartment and smiled. January 1, 10:14 a.m. Neighbors knocked on Lucas's door. No answer. When police entered, everything looked normal, except one thing. The broken mirror had repaired itself, perfectly smooth again. No cracks, no shards. Only one detail stood out. A man's face was visible in the mirror, motionless, eyes full of terror. But when officers stepped closer, the face vanished. Or at least, it pretended to, because mirrors don't reveal the truth. They hide it. And every New Year's Eve, if you listen closely, a faint tapping comes from inside the glass. Soft, painful, desperate. Someone trapped is asking for help, maybe asking for you. Story 6. The cab driver who never made it home. Sometimes the passengers you pick up on New Year's Eve aren't human, and sometimes they don't want a ride. They want a soul. Marcus thought he was driving a stranger, but the stranger was driving him toward death. Marcus Valtari had been a taxi driver in Helsinki for 16 years. He had seen drunk tourists, party-goers, crying lovers, and lonely old men on countless New Year nights. But nothing compared to December 31st, 2025. The night he picked up a passenger who didn't belong on Earth. The last shift. It was snowing heavily. The streets were quiet. Midnight was just an hour away. Marcus had promised his daughter he'd be home by 12:30 a.m. to celebrate the new year. Just one last ride, he thought. He parked near an empty street where streetlights flickered. A shadowy figure stood near a bus stop. Tall, very still, facing the opposite direction. The GPS lit up with a request. Pickup, unknown passenger destination, North Cemetery Road. No number listed. Marcus frowned. Strange, but not impossible. He honked lightly. The figure turned. Its face was hidden under a black hood. It didn't walk to the cab. It glided. Marcus's breath hitched, but the figure opened the back door and entered silently. Marcus forced a smile. "Good evening. Where can I—" A cold voice interrupted. "Drive." It wasn't a human voice. It was low, flat, emotionless, like two voices speaking slightly out of sync. Marcus swallowed hard. "Okay, sure." He put the car in drive. Little did he know, the car wasn't his anymore. His hands weren't his anymore. His fate wasn't his anymore. The silence in the back seat. Snow fell harder as he drove. Marcus glanced at the rearview mirror. The passenger didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't blink, just stared at him through the reflection. Marcus tried to lighten the mood. "Bit cold to be out tonight, huh?" No response. He cleared his throat nervously. "Going to a party? Meeting someone?" Slowly, the hood tilted forward. "No, someone is meeting you." Marcus's heart skipped. "Sorry." "What?" The passenger leaned closer, but only in the reflection. The real body in the back seat did not move. The reflection smiled, a wide, impossible smile. Marcus slammed the brakes, shaking. He turned around. The hooded figure sat perfectly still, not smiling, not moving, not leaning forward. What is happening?" He whispered it, terrified. The snowstorm intensified, and his GPS recalculated the route automatically. Estimated arrival, 12 a.m. The road to nowhere. The road was no longer familiar. Tall, dead trees on both sides. No streetlights, no other cars, only darkness. Marcus's breath fogged the windshield. He whispered, This isn't Helsinki." The reflection in the mirror replied, "Not anymore." Then the real passenger finally spoke. "Keep driving." Marcus gripped the wheel, shaking. "Who are you? Why are you here?" A pause, then the terrible answer, "I ride with those whose time has come." Marcus felt cold spread from his chest to his fingertips. No, I just want to go home. I promised my daughter." The figure leaned closer. "You will not go home." 11:55 p.m., the shifting shadow. Marcus pressed the pedal, trying to escape. The road twisted unnaturally. No matter how fast he drove, the trees stayed the same. Endless, repeating, like a loop. Suddenly the passenger spoke again. "You should not look in the mirror now." Marcus trembled. He looked anyway. A mistake. The figure's reflection was right behind his seat. Hands pressed against the glass. Face visible. But the face had multiple eyes, multiple mouths, all whispering, "Almost midnight. Almost yours." Marcus screamed. The passenger grabbed his shoulder from behind. Cold. Too cold. Marcus swerved. The crash. The car spun out of control. Windshield shattered. Metal screamed. The taxi crashed into a snowbank. Airbags exploded. Glass flew everywhere. Marcus coughed, dazed, blood dripping down his forehead. He crawled out of the broken door. Snow stung his skin. He looked around. The road was gone. The forest was gone. He was in the middle of an empty white field, completely alone, or so he thought. 11:59 p.m., the final conversation. The hooded figure stepped out of the wreckage without opening the door. It floated. Snow around its feet melted into black water. It approached Marcus slowly. Marcus fell to his knees. "Please, I have a little girl. I need to go home. Don't take me. Not tonight. Please." The figure stopped. For the first time, its head moved slightly. Not threatening, almost curious. "You speak of love." Marcus nodded desperately, tears freezing on his cheeks. "Yes, I love her more than anything." The figure lowered its hood. There was no face, just emptiness. "I only take those who are alone." Marcus looked up, confused. "I'm not alone. I have her." The figure leaned down. "And she is the one calling me." Marcus froze. What do you mean?" The figure whispered. "She made a wish. For the new year. She wished for your pain to end." Marcus's heart stopped. His daughter had grown up seeing him suffer after her mother died. An accident, a trauma he never recovered from. She must have wished he would finally rest. The figure extended its hand. "Come, your suffering ends now." Marcus sobbed. Then slowly, he stood up. He took the hand. The snow swallowed them both. They faded into the storm like smoke. January 1, 6:30 a.m. Police found Marcus's taxi wrecked on a normal Helsinki road. No strange forest, no snowfield, no passenger. Inside the cab, they found Marcus's phone still recording. His last message whispered shakily, "Tell my daughter, I'm finally free." The audio ended with a soft whisper, "Happy New Year." Story 7. The New Year that refused to end. When the clock froze at midnight, the world stopped, but the nightmare didn't. The abandoned mountain lodge in Skalvik, a remote icy region in northern Europe, was silent, too silent. Inside the wooden cabin, Elena, Marcus, Sophia, and Daniel stared at the digital clock on the wall. It was blinking. 12 a.m., 12 a.m., 12 a.m. Elena whispered, "Why? Why isn't it moving?" But nothing in the world was moving. Outside the frosted window, fireworks were stuck midair, frozen like dying stars. Snowflakes hung motionless, suspended in the air like tiny frozen ghosts. The wind wasn't blowing. The trees weren't swaying. It was as if time itself had been paused. Except for one thing. The creature, the same entity that had followed them from the dark forest in part 1. The shadow with white hollow eyes and a face stitched with black thread, stood in the corner. It moved. They could move, but the world couldn't. Sophia grabbed Daniel's jacket sleeve. "Why is it moving when nothing else is?" Marcus tried to steady his shaking hands. "What do you want from us?" The creature didn't speak with a mouth. It spoke inside their heads. "Your year is incomplete." Elena swallowed hard. "We celebrated. It's already midnight." The creature tilted its long, crooked head. "Not for you." Its shadow stretched across the floor like spilled ink, crawling toward their feet. Daniel backed away fast, but the shadow followed, like it had chosen them. The wooden floorboards under their boots cracked open, revealing an abyss of swirling darkness. Hands, distorted faces, hollow eyes emerging from the void. The darkness reached their ankles. Elena's voice trembled. "Please, stop." The creature raised one elongated finger to its stitched lips. "Silence, or time will never move for you again." Its shadow lifted, covering the ceiling like a spreading nightmare. Suddenly, click, the digital clock blinked again. 11:59, 58, 11:59, 59. Their hearts dropped. Time wasn't stuck. Time was rewinding. Outside, fireworks reversed direction, falling to the ground instead of exploding. The frozen snowflakes floated upward, back into the clouds. The entire world moved backward like a film rewinding at high speed. Except them and the creature. Marcus whispered, "Why? Why is everything reversing?" Elena felt her chest tighten. "It's pulling us back to before midnight." Sophia shook her head, eyes wide with fear. "Why would it do that?" The creature stepped closer, its hollow white eyes glowing. "Because something entered your year that was not meant to." Daniel stuttered, What entered?" The creature leaned inches from his face. "Me." The darkness now reached their knees, cold, heavy, alive. The cabin shook violently. Broken glass flew upward into windows. Candles relit themselves. Footprints on the floor reversed. 11:59:45, 11:59:40. Elena grabbed Sophia's hand. "If this keeps going, what happens at 11:59:00? The creature's voice rattled through their skulls. "Then your year will restart. Alone." Marcus blinked. "What does that mean?" "The world will enter 2026. But you four will repeat 2025 again." Sophia gasped. "We'll be trapped in the same year forever?" The creature nodded slowly. "Until I am satisfied." Daniel tried to kick the rising darkness, but his boot passed through it like smoke. Elena felt her heartbeat hammering. "So what do we do? How do we finish the year correctly?" The creature stepped back into the shadows. "You must survive the final 10 seconds without making a single sound." Marcus's face went pale. "No sound? We've been screaming since we got here." The shadow mouth stretched into an enormous smile. "And you will pay for each scream." The darkness reached their waists, cold, suffocating, crawling upward. 11:59:15, 11:59:10. Elena squeezed all their hands tight. "We have no choice. If we fail, our year resets forever." Sophia nodded, shaking violently. "Then, we start now?" "Yes." Daniel looked around. "But what if we can't stay silent?" From the darkness, the creature whispered, "Then your eternity will begin." Story 8. The 10 Seconds of Silence. They thought surviving monsters was hard, until they had to survive their own fear. The cabin in Skalvik trembled as the world continued rewinding toward the final moment before midnight. The clock on the wall flashed violently. 11:59:10, 11:59:09. Elena, Marcus, Sophia, and Daniel stood completely still, the creature's command echoing in their skulls. Survive the last 10 seconds in absolute silence. But the darkness rising around their bodies made silence almost impossible. The shadows whispered. They grabbed at their legs. They tugged at their clothes. Daniel bit his lip so hard it almost bled. Sophia covered her mouth with both hands, shaking. Outside, fireworks zipped backward through the sky like glowing insects. Time was folding like paper. The creature watched them with its hollow white eyes, its stitched smile widening. 9 seconds. The darkness surged higher. It crawled up Marcus's chest like icy water. He choked back a scream. Elena grabbed his arm, squeezing hard, forcing him to stay still. Her own breath trembled, fogging the freezing air. 11:59:08, 11:59:07. Sophia's eyes widened. Her leg was being pulled into the floorboards. A pale hand from the shadow grave beneath the cabin grabbed her ankle. More hands followed, clutching at her boot, her shin, her thigh. She covered her mouth and let out a shaky gasp that almost escaped. Elena acted fast. She wrapped both arms around Sophia's waist and pulled hard. Sophia's body jerked upward as the shadow hands resisted, clawing and dragging. Marcus and Daniel rushed silently to help. The four of them pulled together until Sophia came free. But one of the shadow hands clung to her boot for a second longer, its long fingers gripping her skin. A squeezing, bone-crushing pressure shot up her leg. Sophia nearly screamed in agony. Daniel clamped a hand over her mouth just in time. 6 seconds, the creature whispered without moving its lips. The clock blinked violently. 11:59:06, 11:59:05. The cabin walls began to peel backward, paint recoating itself, cracked ceiling, dust lifting off the floor. Everything reversed, resetting time. But the shadows were growing stronger. They wrapped around the group's waist now, pulling them down like sinking sand. Daniel felt something cold touch the back of his neck. He froze. Long black fingers crawled across his spine, sliding up to his hair. The creature leaned toward him. "Fear makes noise." Daniel clenched his jaw, refusing to react. Marcus wasn't so strong. He felt something grab his right foot and drag him a full inch into the floor. His bones twisted unnaturally. His mouth opened. He was about to scream. Elena moved instantly. She slammed her hand over his mouth and pressed her forehead to his. Her eyes were furious. "Quiet." She mouthed it soundlessly. Marcus's eyes watered. He nodded. Just then, the shadows shot upward, swallowing half the room. Only their heads and shoulders remained above the darkness. 11:59:0, 4:11:59:03. Sophia couldn't breathe. Her chest tightened. Tears streamed down her cheeks. The creature slowly lifted its arm. The stitched lines across its face stretched open like fresh wounds. It leaned close to the group and whispered directly into their minds. 3 seconds. 2 seconds. The darkness pulled harder. Their bodies sank deeper. Cold swallowed their lungs. Their hearts pounded so loud it felt like the sound alone would break the rule. And then, a loud crack. The creature snapped one of its own fingers, bending it backward at an impossible angle. The sound echoed like a bone breaking inside a cave. Sophia's eyes widened in horror. Her mouth opened. Daniel threw both hands over her mouth and held her tight. He could feel her scream, fighting to escape. 11:59:02, 11:59:01. Everything froze. The shadow halted. The air stopped moving. The creature's hollow eyes narrowed. This was it. The final second. The end of the nightmare. Or the beginning of a new one. The clock flashed. 11:59. A soundless explosion of light burst across the room. White, blinding, violent. Then, 12 a.m. The darkness vanished instantly, like it had never existed. Fireworks exploded normally in the sky outside. Snowflakes fell like real snow again. The world resumed. Marcus gasped for air. Sophia collapsed to her knees. Daniel held Elena's arm for support. They had survived. The creature stepped back into the shadows. Before fading, it whispered, "Your year continues. For now." And it disappeared. Story 9, The Final Visitor of New Year's Night. They thought the nightmare ended at midnight until someone knocked on the door. The cabin in Skalvik finally fell silent. Fireworks outside sparkled in the sky. Normal, real, alive. Time had resumed. The darkness had vanished. Elena, Marcus, Sophia, and Daniel sat on the wooden floor, breathless, exhausted, trembling. It was over, or so they believed. The digital clock above the fireplace glowed softly. 12:07 a.m., January 1st. A new year. A real one. Sophia wiped her tears. "I thought we were going to die." Marcus nodded weakly. "That creature, it wanted us trapped forever." Daniel leaned his head back against the wall. "At least we made it. It's midnight. The year started. We're safe." Elena didn't look convinced. "Are we? Because something feels unfinished." The room felt too quiet, too still, like something was holding its breath. Outside, fireworks fizzled out one by one until the night sky went completely black. No wind, no owl, no forest rustle. Dead silence. Sophia shivered. Why did everything suddenly stop? Marcus stood slowly, peeking through the frost-covered window. The entire forest of Skalvik lay motionless. No movement, no air, not even falling snow. Daniel whispered, voice cracking, "It's like before." Elena stepped toward him, shaking her head. "No, time is moving. The clock is normal." She pointed. The digits blinked. 12:08 a.m., 12:09 a.m. Everything in the room was alive again. Everything except the outside world. A strange pressure filled the cabin, a heavy weight pressing into their lungs. Something was approaching, not from the shadows, not from below, from outside. Knock. The sound boomed through the cabin like a heartbeat. 3 sharp knocks. Elena froze. Daniel's breath hitched. Sophia grabbed Marcus's arm. Who would knock at a place this remote at midnight? Sophia whispered. Marcus grabbed the nearest lantern. Maybe someone needs help. Elena shot him a glare. After everything we just survived, you think we opened that door? Daniel stepped back slowly. The knocks came again. Knock, knock, knock. But this time, each knock was stronger, heavier, shaking the wooden floorboards under their feet. Elena's voice trembled. It's not a person. Marcus swallowed hard. Then what is it? The creature from the rewound time? Another entity? A leftover echo from the broken timeline? None of them knew. Daniel whispered, whatever it is. It waited until midnight passed. Sophia covered her ears. Don't open the door. Please don't. But the knocking didn't wait for permission. Knock, cuck. The door cracked inward. Wood splintered. The metal handle bent unnaturally. Something was entering. The 4 of them backed up until their shoulders pressed against the far wall. Elena grabbed a fire poker from the fireplace, not as a weapon, but as something to hold so she didn't shake apart. The door creaked open by itself. Cold air rushed in, extinguishing every candle in the cabin. Darkness swallowed everything, except one shape. A figure stood in the doorway, tall, motionless, shrouded in a long cloak dripping with melted frost. Its face was hidden behind a mask carved from wood, long, pale, expressionless, with empty black holes for eyes. It wasn't the creature from before. This was something else, something older, something waiting. Marcus whispered, Who are you? The figure stepped inside. The door slammed shut behind it. The masked visitor lifted a long hand and pointed at the digital clock. 12:10 a.m. And then a dry, hollow voice echoed inside their heads. Just like the first creature, but this voice was deeper, older. Time corrected itself. Elena felt a chill crawl down her spine. Corrected what? The masked entity slowly lowered its hand, and the cabin lights flickered back on. Its cloak dragged across the wooden floor like wet paper. The year has begun. But the 4 of you are still marked. Daniel's breath froze in his throat. Sophia shook her head violently. No more. We survived. We stayed silent. It ended. The masked figure turned its head toward her. Survival is not the end. The room went colder. Marcus stepped forward, fists clenched. What do you want with us now? The figure lifted its pale wooden mask slightly, revealing nothing behind it but swirling black mist. My kind awakened because of your fear. Your world has entered a new year. But for you, this is only the beginning. Elena felt her entire body go cold. Daniel whispered in terror, What beginning? The masked entity stepped closer, its shadow stretching like a living creature. The lantern light flickered violently. And then, with a voice like cracking ice, it whispered, The creatures of the old year were only the first. More will come, every midnight, until your mark is erased. The cabin door blew open with a thunderous scream of wind. The lights burst into sparks. Snow exploded inward. The masked figure dissolved into swirling black mist and vanished into the night. When the wind stopped, when the lights returned, when the cabin settled, 4 words appeared carved into the wooden table. "See you next midnight." Elena's knees buckled. Daniel stumbled back. Sophia screamed. Marcus cursed under his breath. The nightmare wasn't over. The new year had just begun, and something would return every midnight.